Okay, let's dive into this explainer and tackle the ultimate challenge: secure network communication. Think about the internet for a second. It's essentially a massive intercepted wire. It's like trying to shout a secret message across a crowded room where everyone is listening in. So, how do we decode exactly how encryption and digital certificates integrate to keep our digital infrastructure intact? Let's find out.
To figure that out, we're going to follow a pretty straightforward roadmap today. 1. The core of encryption. 2. Symmetric versus asymmetric keys. 3. Digital certificates and trust. 4. The secure connection sequence. And finally, 5. Managing the keys.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, the core of encryption.
At its absolute core, encryption is really just the mathematical process of converting readable data, which we call plaintext, into totally unreadable data, known as ciphertext. And you do this using an algorithm and a specific key. The sheer genius of this setup is that once your data is scrambled up, it is mathematically locked. It stays that way until someone applies the exact, precise key needed to reverse it back to plaintext.
And this brilliantly illustrates the whole process. Following the flow from left to right, you start with your readable plain text, you pass it right through the encryption algorithm with your key, and boom, out comes this locked ciphertext. It's a simple, elegant mechanism, but it is literally our primary defense for protecting data confidentiality. Whether that data is just sitting quietly on a hard drive or actively flying across the internet, this is how we keep it safe.
Moving right along to Section 2, symmetric versus asymmetric keys.
So, when we talk about keys, we're generally dealing with two main methods of cryptography. They each have some pretty stark trade-offs. First up is symmetric cryptography. This uses one single shared secret key. Now, it is incredibly fast, making it great for encrypting massive amounts of data quickly. But there's a glaring, massive logistical flaw. How do you securely distribute that one secret key over an untrusted network without an attacker just grabbing it? Well, that's where asymmetric cryptography comes in. It completely solves that sharing problem by splitting the key into a pair, a public key and a private key. It's brilliant for secure key exchange and authentication. But the downside? The math is way heavier, so it comes with a much higher computational cost, meaning it's usually a lot slower.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is if you look at the padlocks, it makes the whole thing super visual. With symmetric cryptography, over on the left, you literally use the exact same key to lock and unlock the data on both ends. But look at the asymmetric setup in the middle. It completely requires that pair working together. You have a public key that you can share freely with anyone, and a private key that you tightly guard with your life. What one of those keys locks, only the other one can unlock.
Here is a crucial exam tip, so you'll definitely want to lock this in. Symmetric literally means the same shared key. Asymmetric means a key pair with separate public and private keys. Keep that core distinction in mind. It is absolutely essential.
Which brings us to Section 3, digital certificates and trust.
So we have these cool asymmetric keys, right? Because they rely on openly sharing public keys. But think about this critical vulnerability for a second. What if a malicious actor sits right in the middle of your connection and offers you their public key, all while pretending to be your bank? If you encrypt your sensitive data with the attacker's key, well, they can effortlessly decrypt it. There's no hacking required. So the huge question is, how do we actually verify who is on the other end of the line?
Let's look at a classic relatable scenario, Alice and Bob. So, step 1, Alice grabs Bob's public key. Step 2, she encrypts her message with it. And step 3, Bob gets it and decrypts it with his totally secret private key. It's an awesome system because even if someone intercepts the ciphertext, who cares? Only Bob possesses the matching private key to read it. But this entire system completely collapses if Alice can't guarantee that the public key she initially grabbed in step 1 actually belonged to Bob in the first place. Well, the missing link to solve that identity problem is the digital certificate. A digital certificate binds an identity to a specific public key, mathematically proving a server's identity. Honestly, it functions exactly like a digital passport or an ID card for a web server. And just like a real passport requires a government to issue it, a digital certificate is digitally signed and issued by a highly trusted organization called a certificate authority, or CA. This is basically what stops impersonation attacks dead in their tracks.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds into the ultimate process, the secure connection sequence.
This is where all our tools team up for HTTPS. Step 1 kicks off the exact moment a client, like your web browser, reaches out to a secure web address to initiate contact. In step 2, the server immediately responds. It says hello and hands over its digital certificate. And remember, that certificate contains its all-important public key.
Moving to step 3. Now the client's browser acts like a strict bouncer at a club. It scrutinizes the certificate's validity to make sure it's mathematically sound, that it hasn't expired, and most importantly, that it really comes from a trusted CA. If it passes all those checks, trust is officially established.
Okay, trust is established. Now for step 4. The client creates a brand new, one-time symmetric session key. Remember how we said symmetric keys are way faster? Well, this key is built specifically for the lightning-fast encryption we're going to need for the upcoming bulk data transfer.
But wait, how do we share this new session key safely across the internet? That is step 5. The client uses the server's trusted public key, the one it got from the certificate, to securely wrap up and encrypt this new session key and sends it right over the network. Because we use the server's public key, only the server's private key can unlock it. Boom, the session key is securely delivered.
Finally, step 6. Both sides now securely share that super-fast symmetric session key. The heavy lifting of the asymmetric cryptography is completely done. From here on out, all your bulk data, your passwords, your video streams, financial data, it all flies back and forth using highly efficient symmetric encryption.
So the crucial point is this: collaboration is key. Asymmetric cryptography does the heavy lifting up front to establish trust and exchange keys safely, and then it elegantly hands the baton over to symmetric cryptography to efficiently move the data. They literally solve entirely different problems to make the modern secure web possible.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Managing the Keys. Here's the harsh truth. The most brilliant math in the world is totally useless if the human element fails. Key management requires a very strict life cycle. We're talking about generating strong keys, storing them securely, safely distributing them, rotating them out on a schedule, immediately revoking compromised ones, and properly destroying old keys. Let me tell you, in the real world, poor key handling that just completely bypasses the fancy algorithms is very often the primary way attackers get in.
So I'll leave you with this provocative thought to wrap things up. If an encryption algorithm is completely unbreakable, does key management really even matter? Absolutely. Relying solely on the algorithm is a massive blind spot. You can install the most advanced, high-tech digital vault door in the entire world, but if you just leave the private key sitting under the digital doormat, your data's compromised. Algorithms provide the lock, sure, but relentless, careful key management is what actually keeps the system secure. Thanks for diving into this explainer with me. Keep those keys safe, and I'll see you in the next one.